Now, when I say essential, I don't necessarily mean the most powerful or most entertaining episodes. What I'm thinking of are the episodes that give the best overall picture of the Sopranos story, plot development, and key turning points or moments that impact the show. And I modeled it off the HBO Max collection's essential episode category that they have for some series, like, for example, Game of Thrones. The Sopranos is one of their collections, but they don't have an essential episodes list. And I specifically forced myself to limit the number. So, without further ado.
I don't know. Stress, maybe. It's good to be in something from the ground floor. But lately, I'm getting the feeling that I came in at the end.
Many Americans, I think, feel that way.
Your son stuck his hand in, made it 100 times more difficult for me.
The very first thing we see is Tony sitting in the waiting room of Dr. Melfi's office, his psychiatrist. Hence, Guy walks into a psychiatrist's office, and this is one of the central locations for the show. This really sets up the foundation, and we get introduced to this really toxic relationship dynamic between Tony and Junior, Tony and his mother, Livia, among others.
I'm afraid I'm going to lose my family.
You know how much trouble you're in now? You took an oath, and you broke it.
College is a critical episode, not just for what happens, but also for how it impacted pop culture as a whole, and what we came to see as our modern TV anti-hero.
I got into a little trouble when I was a kid.
I heard.
You did.
A model subsequently used in a number of other successful TV shows.
One thing about us wise guys, the hustle never ends.
In Isabella, Season 1, Episode 12, we have the first assassination attempt on Tony, and it was set in motion by Livia and Junior, Tony's mother and uncle.
Something may have to be done, Livia, about Tony.
And now it's come to life.
My cousin Keiki, after he had his lobotomy, he looked exactly like my son.
Livia.
Empty, a shell. Better Keiki had died than go on living like that. That's what his own mother always used to say.
Excuse me. Yeah.
You're not gonna believe this. Your sister's here.
Barbara?
Nope, Janice. Our body.
My brother, I get a pass.
In Guy Walks Into a Psychiatrist's Office, we meet Janice. In the Season 2 premiere, Puss also returns. Says he was down in Puerto Rico getting acupuncture. And it was in the previous episode that I discussed, Isabella, where they were looking for Puss.
Are you crazy?
Not as crazy as I used to be. Still crazy enough to take an eye out.
So in addition to meeting Richie and Toodle fucking Oo, Richie and Janice also reunite. As for Richie, he's Tony's number one enemy and antagonist of Season 2, and we know that leads to some interesting chaos.
I could use a schwitz. Wanna go for a schwitz? He's got money to play here. Let him pay me my money. Send him out. You go home, Richie.
I chose The Happy Wanderer for a couple of reasons. We meet Davy Scatino, an important character for the second half of Season 2, who not only pisses off Tony, but also Richie, which causes more conflict between Tony and Richie.
This ain't gonna happen to one of my players.
We get a look into the mind of Janice and how she's actively trying to sabotage Tony and make things tougher for him by fanning the flames and egging on Richie Aprile.
I know how things work. Don't forget, I was Daddy's little girl. You're his responsibility. He didn't do you any favor.
But then things take a swift turn. Richie really pisses off the wrong person, and breaks his own rule for that matter. And then he got buried on a hill overlooking a little river with pine cones all around.
The fuck out of here. I'm in no mood for you. You were like a brother to me. To all of us. Yeah.
In the Season 2 finale, Funhouse, we see the final downfall of Puss Bompensero after Tony finds a wire in a false bottom of a cigar box in Puss's room. And it was a pretty powerful moment for someone who was one of Tony's best friends, who had been a core character since the very beginning of the show. Livia dies,
Your mother died.
You're kidding.
Along with Livia's death comes a major plot development where Janice returns to New Jersey for their funeral and ends up never getting that return ticket to Seattle. And we see how that has major ramifications. Christopher and Eugene become made men.
Because once you enter this family, there's no getting out.
Leave me alone.
What's the matter with you? What are you being like this for?
Season 3, Episode 6, University, is a very important episode because, in my opinion, it features the most memorable and impactful one-episode character, Tracy, whose death impacts Tony for quite a while. Tony considers getting rid of Ralph right after this, but he backs off, and of course, as we know, he makes Ralph captain. Her brief presence leaves a lasting mark on Tony that impacts a big decision he makes in the following season, as we'll later see. Gigi dies. Not only is it a big deal because Gigi is one of Tony's captains, but also because it led Tony to make Ralph captain. After Ralph killed Tracy, the last thing Tony wanted to do was give Ralph a promotion.
Never.
But sometimes life works in funny ways.
Hello?
It's a bad connection, so I'm gonna talk fast.
The guy you're looking for is some kind of ex-commando or some shit. He killed 16 Chechen rebels single-handed.
When many people think of The Sopranos, after Tony Soprano, they think of Polly and Christopher in the middle of the woods in the snow.
You're not gonna believe this. He killed 16 Czechoslovakians. Guy was an interior decorator. His house looked like shit.
Not only that, we see that as the show develops, Christopher and Polly have an increasingly tense relationship at times.
Oh! Don't make me pull a rank on you, kid.
Fuck you, Paulie. Captain or no captain, right now we're just two assholes lost in the woods.
Adriana LaServa, Special Agent Dwight Harris, FBI.
Adriana gets approached by the FBI and has to start cooperating with them. Tony kills Ralph Cifaretto, and Tony and Carmela separate.
I believe you two have already met.
No Show also features the infamous Ginny Sack joke, which causes a lot of problems for Ralph and for the rest of the guys until Johnny Sack decides to forgive. Some temporary personnel changes were made too.
There's a new acting capo of his crew. It's Chrissy.
And whoever did this, Tony, I think, finally gets some sort of closure regarding Tracy's death by killing Ralph, which is illustrated in the form of seeing her picture on the mirror at the end of the episode.
The beautiful innocent creature, what did she ever do to you?
Whitecaps, the season 4 finale, and a true masterclass in acting.
Why would the cousin make it up? Because she's jealous! Why? Fuck! Let go of me!
I'd say Edie really stuck out the most here. And this set the stage for the dynamic at 633 Stag Trail Road for season 5.
Oh. Say provolone.
You realize I had an entire container of a port of provolone? Tell John where to find Tony Blondetto.
And we see a whole lot of bloodshed that gets started in All Happy Families with the killing of Lorraine Caluso.
Accountant dies, goes to heaven.
We also say our goodbyes to Feech after his brief return from the can, though if you'll remember, we first heard his name back in The Happy Wanderer. But ultimately, Feech still saw Tony as a kid, and Tony didn't want to make the same mistake that he did with Richie Aprile.
Famous Space 43.
In Marco Polo, we have the official retaliation for the killing of Lorraine Caluso back in All Happy Families.
Hey, Joe.
Hugh's surprise, not surprise 75th birthday party also takes place in Marco Polo, and I think that it's events and things that happen here at this party that contribute to Tony B's decision to agree the very next morning to take up the offer on killing Joey Peeps. We get a look at the overall state of play in terms of certain relationships, including the one between Tony and Carmela, which is far from cut and dry.
Russ had an audience with 4 popes.
Oh. What section did you all sit in?
Oh, idiot.
I'll see you up there.
Oh my God, what are we gonna do?
And I see this as one of the key turning points for Tony and Christopher, because after this, nothing's really quite the same with their relationship, because there's always this Adriana issue lingering just below the surface.
Ten minutes.
Don't go anywhere.
In Members Only, we start out with a banger of a montage and end with a bang when Junior shoots Tony while Tony's watching him one evening. Though we know Tony survives, this is obviously a big deal and leads Sil to take the lead as acting boss until Tony emerges from his coma at the end of Mayhem. We take one of the made men from the making ceremony back in season 3.
His family comes before everything else. Everything.
Tony, why don't you kill him? Put a bullet in his fucking head.
Is our life that bad?
I was here. It's a joke. Sal, please. Don't say nothing, Sal.
265.
And we see Tony's insecurity on full display as he returns to the office. When we first meet Kelly, it's sort of out of nowhere, and it's when she tells Christopher that she's pregnant.
I'm pregnant.
With Kelly, it's not so much about who it was. It's that she was someone who fit the profile of what Christopher thought he wanted/needed. Now that life with Adriana was no longer possible. That's sort of the picture of your stereotypical American dream. And Vito's murder in Cold Stone can be traced back to the end of season 6, episode 5, when he was first spotted at the gay bar. But it's not just the DeMeo family who loses someone in this episode. Also the Lupertazzi family, when Fat Dom decided he wanted to run his mouth after Vito was killed. And, well, he didn't get to run his mouth for much longer. And this is the episode where Carmela and Rosalie take a trip to Paris. And Carmela says something to Rosalie, but it specifically reminds me of Funhouse when they kill Puss, back at the season 2 finale.
We worry so much. Sometimes it feels like that's all we do. But in the end, it just gets washed away. All of it just gets washed away.
You probably don't even hear it when it happens, right? Bobby Bacala is forced to pop his cherry. Tony kills Christopher, and Made in America. And it makes me think back to season 6A, when Tony got out of the hospital, and he was looking at Bobby and feeling insecure and self-conscious, like not having the makings of a varsity athlete.
Sweeter than wine.
This isn't the first time that we see Christopher on the brink of death or about to possibly die. We really see this dark side of Tony Soprano that we can no longer ignore. Maybe he's always been this dark. It was just easier for him to hide it. Or it was easier for us to ignore it, the audience. We're forced to look it straight in the eye. Made in America, the Sopranos series finale, premiered on June 10th, 2007, and we're still talking about it all these years later.
You may run North Jersey, but you don't run your Uncle Junior.
You two ran North Jersey.
This whole notion of the American dream. Doesn't seem like the whole being made in America worked out too well for Christopher Eugene.
But lately I'm getting the feeling that I came in at the end.
Many Americans, I think, feel that way.
And we can also think back to Members Only, season 6, episode 1, when Deanne Pontecorvo says, "Why didn't you kill Tony? Maybe someone did eventually, even if it wasn't Eugene."
Well, that's nice.
Thanks for watching. Which episodes do you think were essential in understanding the Sopranos story? I'd love to hear from you.